All right, so my first question for you is tell me a little bit about yourself. I've kind of given a little history on you, but I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about James.
Sure, wonderful. I'm really just a person that has what I would say penetrated the spiritual knowledge until I can get some real vivid answers. And so that would be the simple way of putting it. And the more of the longer story, which we'll attempt to make very short, is I grew up in a spiritual household with a lot of spiritual principles. My mother went through a great deal of what we call today religions, but she was very devout, and she spent her time looking through all of the documentation and doctrines, and also putting that as a way of life within our household. So I had, in a sense, a spiritual seed planted when I was younger. And although, obviously, if you're immersed in spirituality very deeply when you're younger, once you get of age, maybe even 15 or 16, you're out of there. And so I still, in life, had that major question. I can definitely say I had a lot of guidance, as we all do. And around the time that I turned 24, I began to have very synchronistic spiritual encounters that aggressively increased over a period of time and have not stopped. And in that, I've been able to remain completely sound and grounded, taking the lessons and documenting the experience of the actual ascension and descension process, because of course our energies are constantly moving. And the AstroQuest website, and originally beginning as Resistance 2010, was a platform developed for individuals to compare their experiences, also share knowledge, and obviously I infused the platform itself with a great deal of knowledge and access to things for free, because I felt that it was an oxymoron to charge people for freedom. And if we were looking for something here and we were attempting to expand, then we needed to collaborate and not put any obstacles between us. So the Resistance and AstroQuest became, in a sense, a portal for individuals that were experiencing different levels of spiritual inclinations and spiritual attunements. And that's basically the place where everyone began to meet. And so now the platform is actually at 10,000, almost 11,000 people. And we've been on this quest, and that's why we call it the Astro Quest, through constellations, through knowledge, through our bodies, and through everything that is viable, which is everything on this planet, if you ask me, but everything that is viable to look into, to get some answers and some application about advancing our experience here on this planet we call Earth.
Okay, and again, everybody who's live listening on liveparanormal.com, and also if you want to get interactive in the chat room and talk to one another, please do that as well. I've got a couple things running right now, so unfortunately I won't be in the chat room with you guys tonight, unfortunately, but definitely call in. And again, this is one of the largest esoteric libraries on the net at astroquest.com. So make sure you join it, check it out, and maybe share your experiences. Okay, I'm going to go to the phone lines right quick because I know we usually get a lot of calls, and I don't want you to think we've forgotten about you. So I'm going to go to 850, last two digits, 29. I've got you on the line. Welcome to Whispers from the Heart.
Good evening.
Good evening. Is this my girl?
Yes, this is your girl. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing today?
You. I'm beautiful. Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah. Do you have a question for our guest, James, tonight?
Actually, I just wanted him to keep talking, Erica.
You too? Yes.
Well,
I'm really interested in what in James, and I wanted to hear more about what his path is, mainly.
We'll get it out of him as the interview continues, and I'll let you continue to live hold, and
okay.
I might come back to you later on just in case you change your mind and you've got something that you want to say, okay?
Okay, super. Thank you.
All right, sweetie. Thank you, Kelly. Okay, and we'll be going to the phone lines again. Now, I mentioned earlier that on your website, astroquest.com, you have a lot of resources, some of which would be your book, The Real Matrix. Tell me, before we discuss the book, just tell me what the Matrix is. Because a lot of people have seen the movie, they've heard the term, but they don't really understand what a Matrix is. So could you define that for us?
Sure. Well, the book, The Code to the Matrix, was, in a sense, the actual explanation of the deeper, how can I put it, meanings within the language. And what I would say is to what a matrix is, just to answer the question directly, is obviously there's an interpretation that the movie's giving that is somewhat incorrect, but does match to this society, because it comes from the Greek word matrices, which are basically wombs. That's where you get many of these words, such as ma, and even mistresses and matrices, and all these different words mean basically wombs, or a dark place where things are cultivated. So in general, what a matrix is a cube, as they call it, incubation. And this is a place where life forms begin to develop. And, I can because I know that there's probably been, obviously, the people here are abreast of a great deal of spiritual knowledge just from their encounters with others. And what I would really also like to talk about, and just kind of center the conversation somewhat so everyone is thoroughly introduced to how I came about this knowledge, so there's no speculation, is for us all to just rewind for a moment and ask ourselves to examine what's really going on and what is our process of existence. And to make it as simple as possible, I would just like us to view that we have physical bodies or physical existence and things on the physical plane, such as trees, crystals, humans, bugs, etc. And then for those who are somewhat adept, they are aware that there is a spiritual plane where there are, in a sense, individualized states of consciousness, i.e. a tree spirit, i.e. a human spirit, even a daemon, an anu, or even a whole classification of different kinds of beings that are in this, what I call the buffer or the gap, or what we call the veil in between what becomes not so much as the next dimension, but the actual material that all this stuff is created from, which we call soul. There is no such word as souls as if there's plural, because their soul means at least one. We know it is meaning actually zero, meaning that it is everything or nothing, not moving. It has no individualization. So this allows us to raise or to pique our interest in what is going on in the spiritual plane, and how can we begin to prosper from understanding that it actually exists, that there will be continuation after we leave the physical body. And for anyone that has gotten involved in deep hypnosis or channeling, etc., it's clear that there's an entire world set up there, multiple worlds, where you have more than eidolons, meaning more than just the ideas of what people used to be, but actually sentient entities that are carrying on and doing things that are affecting our reality. And so that would be the first thing that I would encourage a person just to think of it like that, because we see things through our eyes. The spiritual plane sees things as if it's behind you. And this gives it an entirely different view, because right now you can only see really what's in the room that you're in, unless you have third eye facilities or something of that nature. But when we're talking about being outside in this first firmament, this space that's right outside of us that we're calling space, we have to realize that the spiritual entities that, in a sense, animate many of the things that are alive on our planet are there and carrying on. And there's such a large amount of different kinds, because the spirits still maintain their individualization. Every single thing that has been in this solar system, mainly on this planet, is still available in many tenses on a non-linear timeline, or outside of time, a space that continues. And I like to call this autopilot. It's what you're looking at in the sky, where the same stars, the same essences continue to move. So whoever gets in this universe or university, they go through these courses and these cycles. And what happens, though, is that if you lose your bearing, you can become psycho, meaning in a sense have a lunacy because of counting time too much. and getting
Okay.
distracted by our decay, and then losing sight that we're at least spirits, but when we're pure, we're souls, and that this is actually stages of consciousness that we can enter where there are more senses, i.e., other spatials available for us to utilize the faculties that we have discovered also in a map, which is our body, of the universe. So we've been able to identify many wondrous things within our body, and now we also have to dissect, because if I'm explaining this to a person and they are having a hard time understanding or believing that it's true, we have to dissect what caused that, who or what causes otherwise very benevolent and massively connected beings to somehow become individualized and separate and have a great deal of animosity for one another. And so to me, that's the first part of this, is to realize the spirits, also realize the flesh, and then also realize the soul. Now, the deeper knowledge already states, and this is not, I'll tell people, I'll give you knowledge out of the book, but this is something that I've experienced, that in this space between us and the moon is the first firmament. This is where people go when they die, when they're still under the dominion of what's known as the Lord, or lowered, meaning the lowest constellation or celestial body that is in our circumference. So we have this activity going on Earth with our attraction to shiny and bright things that have a lot of energy, things that even appear to have a lot of energy or appear to be going somewhere and doing something. And we find this to be a major part of our existence and the major reason why we reincarnate. It's that we're attracted to something, and that something, because of our energy and our passion, when we plunge into it, we create from that plunging into it. We are creators,
Okay.
but in every tense, co-creators. And the reason that we have to really understand the difference between what a creator really is and where we're at is there is nothing in the soul plane that has been created. It baffles our minds. It's called the unbegotten. It's the place where it has no beginning, and that's why it has no end. In our world, aka go ahead.
I was just going to say, let's take a moment. We've got the phone lines lighting up, and we've got a lot of callers. So let's just take 1 second. And so what we'll probably come back to is that I know that on your website you talk about motivation, empowerment, deprogramming, and enlightenment. So I kind of want to talk about those topics, and how we'll talk about a little bit of Kundalini energy as well. So we're going to go to the phone lines and try to get as many calls as we can, and then we're going to come back to my guest tonight, James Bomar, and he is the author of The Code of Matrix, and also his website, astralquest.com. Definitely check that out and join it, because it is a joining forum. Okay, we're going to go to the phone lines. My next caller is 562 area code. Welcome to the show.
Hello?
Hello, welcome to the show.
Hi, am I on?
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Good. How can I help you today? Do you have a question for our guest?
Yeah, I had a question for James.
Mm-hmm.
James, right?
Sure, go ahead.
Hi, James. I didn't think I'd be on this soon. I've read I actually had like 3 questions for you. And the first question was, I've read the Code, the Matrix, maybe a couple years ago, and it was fascinating. I was really interested, and I got really into the language. I started getting a little lost though. And that kind of ties into my second question. There was so much information, it seems like at times, that I was kind of getting a little lost, and I had trouble like verifying some of the things you say. just because of the sheer volume of information that was in there. Like, you get really detailed with the words and what they mean. And I was wondering kind of where you got or where I might be able to go check or look more deeper into the concepts you talk about.
Well, I mean, obviously there's several concepts or even beyond concepts talked about in the Code of the Matrix. It's really good to address something direct, but we also have to realize that when we're learning something, that means that we didn't know it. So as we persevere through it and we continue to learn more about it, it's like playing piano or practicing and then beginning to make that practice perfect. So in certain tenses, you have to look back in yourself and ask yourself, well, what do I really want to accomplish out of all of this? Like, what do I need to know? Like, and then ask that question directly. And because really there's volumes and volumes of books in this world, and many of those books, if you just search deep enough and from keyword to keyword, you'll start finding information. But the question still is that when you come across something, because it was in the first sentence or in the last sentence, when you come across something that's deep knowledge, can you feel it? Not so much as just understand it, like with your mind or with your mentality. And so what we're working with now is that we are working with getting people to feel what's happening, because if you think about it, the last video that you may have watched that may have been very cohesive about what it was explaining about what's going on in this matrix and how you need to get yourself together. And then you may need, if you find yourself needing to see the next video and need to read the next book, you would also see that could possibly be a trap, that maybe it's something about the way that you're perceiving the energy and the way you're perceiving the knowledge that is maybe keeping you from coming into total realization. And this is something that I've experienced and we talk about on the site. And this is because that with the body in particular, if you have become physically identified and have done certain things to the body that close its channels of perception and intuition, what's called discernment, then you only need to clean your filters, which are like lenses, clean your chakra center, and then take another look. And so how that's done is that's done through internal cleansing, where the herbs are used to change the frequencies, because the ancient knowledge shows you all the way up until this day to rife that each organism here on the planet has a specific frequency. And then you have these herbs that have high vibratory frequencies that are utilized to clean your chakras, which are actually planets. So high vibratory frequencies are actually, in a sense, balance frequencies that are specific to that chakra. So you do have individuals, and we do have information on this of how you can do this for free. And then we also have a package that's completely put together, so that way you can just go by the instruction manual and do the cleansing to yourself. And then that's going to get you to an entirely different
Well, let me ask you a more specific question.
Okay, great.
Say I find a word, you define a word. I can't think of an example right now, but you make a few definitions for some of the roots of words, the etymological roots of some words, right? Mm-hmm. Would you recommend any reference material that I could look at to kind of learn more about where they come from?
Yeah,
there's some points you make that I kind of want to look deeper
Okay, well,
into.
yeah. I mean, basically, you're asking, well, where does the data actually come from? Well, the other thing about the actual connection with your higher self is that it comes from another source. So it's, in sense, if we don't write it, then it's not written. We're living in a world that is hidden all the knowledge about what the tones and the vibrations really mean. And the other thing is that this is a very serious thing when you're talking about words also, and what words means, because if you can actually get to the correct tones and the correct vibrations, then you're now into intoning and evocation. Each of these words are energy. That's why
So was the book the Code of the
And
Matrix?
another thing too that I would like to just add too, the wonderful thing I like about the forum on his website, resistance2012.com, is that, you know, there is a question and answer section. There also is a forum section where I would assume that, you know, people like yourself would have questions about certain things. So there's conversation about it. There's downloadable tools. There's a knowledge base. I'm just looking at the website. And so probably some of the things that you have more specific questions about, you could probably address that there, and I'm sure.
I actually found the website around. Sorry to cut you off, but I actually found the website around, I think, 2011, and I've checked back periodically, just to see what's going on. I noticed it changes from time to time, like the design and everything. I'm still, let me ask you this. Would you say
Well,
that
sir,
particular
I'm
book,
not trying to cut you off, but I have tons of people that are holding, so what I would recommend you do is check out the site again and definitely shoot him an email.
You can email me, brother. Like I can get it all to you. Like, trust me, I'm here to get you to where you need to go. But on this platform, it may not be the type of time that we need to elaborate. But if you jump on the site and just send me an email, we can interface like that.
Most definitely.
Okay. I just had one more question. If I could just ask one more question, it'll probably be a little more relevant to everyone else.
Well, I think, as I said before, and I think it'd be fair for us, for all that's involved, because we have other people that are holding, definitely send him an email. He has lots of resources online and is very receptive to help you in some way. So definitely shoot him an email and we can go from there, okay?
Okay, good. I'll just email you then. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much, and thanks for calling. Okay, on your website, I'm having to restart my computer, guys, so just hold off just a second. On your website, you discuss motivation, empowerment, deprogramming, and enlightenment. As you were talking to this caller, and I know just, from my personal experience as well, sometimes we're given things in spirit or in meditation or in channeling that is very true to us in our higher self, but probably not explainable to other people. But we also walk in a world where we're very programmed by media and all of these other outsources and in history and all of these things. Can you, without getting too far out there, can you kind of tell me a couple of things that people would just probably not believe about history or deprogramming? Some things that you might want to highlight.
Well, I mean, that's a very open-ended question, but, I would say that the explanations are really all around us. It's not that they're not there. It's just our interpretations of them. And that's as much as I can really lend to the question, and seeing that, again, it was very, very open-ended. But the deprogramming process also, just to chime into that, and the actual expansion, it's not, people are looking for at times the genie in the bottle. It's terrain modification in a sense. You don't want it to be really aggressive. You want it to be gentle to you, because we're talking still about a real thing. So if you all of a sudden just happen to come in contact with the spirit world after knowing nothing about it, the encounter tends to not go very well because of our own fears of seeing things that are different than what we normally choose to experience. So the process that we're actually taking individuals through is understanding that all is self, meaning all the things that you see around you is you. And it's about being able to understand which one you're going to amplify, meaning when you're in a specific situation, you can then choose what frequency, and mainly if you work with the balanced frequencies, you want to be on. And then in the meantime, when that is not necessary, you remain in somewhat of a neutral, somewhat, we call it in the corpus callosum, the balance part of the brain, rather than going into this high level of energy upheaval and confusion in your mind because of the duality that exists with you trying to figure out things. So it's a step-by-step process. Generally, we start with the body because that's where we find the most problems to be occurring here on this particular physical plane that we're on. And then when you talk to the individual at that point, you can at least get through to them about what they're going to need to do next. Rather than if you start to explain to people very complex things and they're still toxic, they're not going to really comprehend the depth of how they need to apply it to themselves, and they're just going to continuously ask questions. We want to get people out of that question part: what, when, who, why, how, that kind of state of consciousness, and we want to move people into the control point. And so that's really what this is about. This is what the whole deprogramming process really is.
Okay. And I was watching one of your videos that I thought was pretty interesting, and it discussed fear. And you gave an example of a little baby logging in, guys, so hopefully I'll get to the phone lines in just a second. You gave an example of, I guess, a baby that was in India, and they had this little infant sitting or laying, I don't recall. I think she was sitting. It was a little girl, and she was sitting in front of a cobra. And the cobra was just basically moving as cobras do and maybe striking, or not striking to hit the child, but, you know, and you mentioned about how we fear things, and here this child is in front of, you know, basically a deadly animal, and this child has no fear.
Right.
And I'd like you to kind of touch upon that and how that fear interferes with us and specifically our ability to kind of understand what's going around us spiritually, metaphysically, etc.
Sure. Well, interfere is a good word for it, as you can see. And we have to understand that, you know, fear is not inherited. Like when you see the child born, you see that the child is fearless. And then the child begins to learn fear based on the environment they're in, because fear is biolocal, meaning that there are animals that are afraid. When you walk up to a bird, it flies away. There are dogs that are afraid. There are humans that are afraid. So when that frequency is present, as the child grows up, they begin to learn this frequency. And what this frequency does is it is a contractor. That's why when someone scares you, you draw back. So the pineal gland in particular, it needs to be open in order for it to put the cornucopic field over the reality so that you can see what's really there. But if you're scared, it intuitively closes, because it knows that if you saw what was really here, you would more than likely be scared of it because you have inherited fear from the reality.
Okay.
You see what I mean? So you can inherit the fear from other beings that fear in the reality.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and thank God I've gotten logged back in, so we're going to go through some phone calls. And remember, guys, if you're listening to us live at liveparanormal.com, join the chat room, discuss different things, call in. Our call-in number for you to call in to speak with my guest tonight, James Bomar, is going to be 619-639-4606. And I am also taking calls if you have a question you'd like to ask me a question. However, make sure you press 1. I think it's press 1 to speak with the host. That'd be me, so that I'll know that you're not just holding to live listen, because we've got tons of people holding for live listen, and I won't know to pick up, unfortunately. Okay, we're going to go to 518 area code. Welcome to the show.
Oh, peace. How are you doing tonight?
Hold us, I'm doing
Doing great, doing lovely. How are you doing, and what's your name?
My name is Brother L.
Hey, Brother L. Do you have a question for my guest?
Yeah, I do have a question, but first I wanted to just send a greeting back to the Brother Bomar and yourself. But his greeting is so energetic when he says wholeness and balance, vibration to everyone. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to throw that back at him. I like that. It's really
Appreciate
nice.
that.
Okay.
I do too.
Yeah, man. It's good. I'm feeling your vibe, my man. Anyway, into the question, I really don't know the nature of your expertise, sister, what you're dealing with, and I just happened to see that this brother was going to be on this number tonight, so I had a question for him, and it was dealing with, it was a 3-part question. One is about diet. I was wondering if you could give me some tips about diet. 2, it's not really an anagram, but the breakdown, the acronym, not breakdown, the phonetics of the word open. I heard you explain it once, and I've heard it explained some other places, but I mean, I can see it clearly etymologically how open, and you break it down through phonetics. But I don't really see any practical energy being produced by it. I don't, or maybe I'm just not aware of it. And I guess the third portion of the question is this: if you have any reference books that I can do some research on, if you have any reference books. Like I've been reading this book from Samuel and Weir, some Gnostic information. It has some light in it, you know. And I just want to keep growing and keep growing. I tried to get on your site, but I can never get in when it comes to the cryptic code that they want you to put in so that you can finish completing the application or whatever, and I can never get in. So if you can give me some reference points, and if you were able to catch that, then it'd be a blessing for me to catch something back from you.
Okay, for sure. Well, I'll go over this with brevity and in consideration of the time. But just to answer the question about the word open, and when I do reveal the actual, it's more like there's another actual word for it. It's like an image cryptography in a certain sense. It's when a word actually comes out as an image, if you understand what you're looking at. And the word open is then a circle, which we're now seeing that this circle is actually is an indicator of the full moon rather than a crescent moon, and then a pin, which is a pentagram. And so what you see in the Eastern traditions, obviously you see a crescent moon and a pentagram, and this has a lot to do with the stage that they're saying that they understand the Lord in either the wane phase, in the crescent phase, or the scythe phase, or in the full abundant phase. But the pentagram is always present. Now, the reason why there's the word open is because many are familiar with the identity of what's called a prison planet, which is where the planet is geared towards you basically staying locked inside of your body. So because the body is phi, and that phi connects to the pentagram, it kind of links the body directly to some type of pin if you don't understand how to get out. So what is kind of in the symbol itself is the tracing of the individuals in a tense that have been involved in utilizing this level of magic, as they love to call it, on the particular beings or young spirits, young seeds that are here developing on this planet without them understanding or understanding edgewise. So that's the first thing with open. With the reference books, what's happening is obviously I would love to get in and to write another book. The Code of the Matrix was written in 1 month, and that's also the reason why it still needed a little bit more editing. But the fact is that to be able to deal with that kind of energy and write that kind of stuff, especially if you know so much more, then it takes some time. So what happens is that there are some books that we recommend. We do the book of the month, and it will get you really relative to what's going on in the path. Like, it may not be something directly related to language, because at this point, like I was trying to explain to the gentleman, the language stems back into codes that have power. So there's been a very, very tricky thing going on with those words and what exactly they mean. And generally, if a person pronounces them before they don't understand what they mean, it always seems to spell some level of trouble. So personally, I don't recommend certain words and all that kind of stuff with people, because I don't really want to be responsible until we completely research where these tones and vibrations come from and where their origins are. But we know that they're used to divide. All words are used to divide and designate things as they are, i.e. computer, i.e. Sheila, i.e. Tom, i.e. Jason, etc. So understand that you're dealing with swords when you're dealing with words, as you see S word or swords, okay? So the last thing is the diet. Now, really, you're going to definitely have to jump in on the resistance, because it's terrain modification. You can go good, better, best. There's certain things that you just cannot be ingesting, and then from there, you can go into a weaning out process. But it's best not to just cold turkey do anything if you don't have that kind of will, because you can space it out in a certain tense and get a great deal of benefit from doing it like that. So that's all. That's what I have to deliver to you today, brother. And you can also email me, as I explained to the other brother.
No more.
Okay, and listen for the rest of the show as well, because some of the questions that I'm going to be asking him is things about internal cleansing and superfoods.
Nice.
And I'm sure some of that stuff.
Just to let you be aware, but I know you may be on the radio schedule itself, so I can respect that. But if you want to go an extra 30 minutes or an hour, I'm just letting you know I am available.
I think we have a show that follows me, but that doesn't mean I won't have you back, because I definitely enjoy having you as a guest. Okay, thank you for calling, caller. I'm going to let you continue to hold so you can continue to live listen. And guys, remember, if you are wanting to speak with me, make sure you hit the 1 or 2 button. I'm not sure what it is, so that I will get a little red dot to let me know that you're not just live listening. Okay, so we talked a little bit about fear, and again, on your website, the 2 websites that you have, I'm just going to go over those, because I really think they're a treat for people who are interested in esoteric studies, and they definitely need to check them out, astroquest.com, and the other website, I'm flipping through, Resistance 2010.com, resistance2010.com. And on those sites, again, there are avenues for you to join, I guess, an email list and also forums. You can also join them on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. So stay in the know and definitely join those things. Okay, so I really like to empower people, and I like people to kind of learn from other people, because my way may not work for someone and your way may not, but, you know, it's good for them to have that base, that foundation, that tree. And so when I saw on your website that, you know, you felt by the information about internal cleansing and virtual cleansing, and I know we are kind of limited for time, but I am personally right now on a cleanse of some sort. I am on vegetables and fruit, basically. And I've noticed that since I've kind of decided to eat cleaner for a time span, I feel light. I just feel so spiritual. It's almost awesome. 80s, it's awesome. So tell us a little bit about the processes of internal cleansing, what you recommend, and if some products are available on your website for people to order or to find.
Sure. The general idea here is that you don't drive your car around without changing the filters, and obviously you change the oil. And so there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't do the same thing with the body. And obviously the body can be very toxic with all the different sediment in the water and the different kind of toxins within the food, the pesticides, etc. We already know that it's going on. So in many tents, the way to counteract a great deal of density, what we call when the body turns into lead or becomes a dead cell or Saturnalian, etc., when you can't really feel anything anymore, you don't have the energy, you're always tired, then this is actually saying your body is saying to you, hey, I need to clean this out. And so what we do is we put together very comprehensive things about how to actually go through this process of cleaning your body in the cycle in which it needs to be cleaned, because many people may go and do a liver cleanse, or they may go do a kidney cleanse, maybe I need to clean my kidney because I drink too much, and then they go and do this kidney cleanse, and then they flush all the stuff from their kidney into their pancreas. Because what happens is that the body runs like a seasonal thing. And so organs themselves have to be cleansed in the proper order. So this is the kind of things that we've discovered that generally becomes the hampering to people really experiencing some of the stuff that they're trying to its maximum potential. Obviously, it's good, better, best, as I mentioned earlier. So there's certain things that you can do that make it okay. And then there's some other things that make it great. And I would like people to heavily consider that when we eat food, there's a certain level of energy that food is giving off, or i.e. the millivolts, how much it actually can give off as charge. And there's a video on YouTube that shows you that lemons actually have a slight charge. And if you put 5 lemons together and wire them properly, you can actually make a lemon battery that can turn on the light. So that's a simple way of seeing that food has energy. So we have to ask ourselves also, should we be actually eating other things? And that's why what we do get involved in the site is we get involved in spagyrics and monatomics, which are elements, not monatomic gold. That's everything that went wrong with monatomics, but other elements such as ruthenium and iridium. These are elements that are really the makeup of the stardust that is in a sense, the magnum opus, or the great work of how we were created. So we're basically restoring that as, in a supplement for, instead of the body eating, the spirit actually eating. And then there's also obviously very natural ways for the body to gain a great deal of spiritual stance, and that's of course involving itself with nature, involving itself with other kinds of energies that have proved to be symbiotic to our organism, etc. So that's what we're talking about.
Okay. And you can get more information about this on his website, along with, there's different things about how to increase your Kundalini energy, how to have a higher living, just a lot of different information. So definitely check on those things. I'm going to try to go to the phone lines and just grab a couple of people, because I'm not sure if you're holding to just listen, and I don't want you to be holding if you wanted to speak with us. Okay, we're going to the best. The best at what? I'm not sure, but I'm sure you're awesome. How are you doing today? Hello? I think you're calling in on Skype, and the name is The Best. Do you hear me? Okay, maybe not. Well, thanks for live listening. Okay, we're going to go to area code 208. Welcome to the show. 208, welcome to the show. Hello? Oh, this is fun. Okay, we're going to go to area code 843. Welcome to the show. Area code 843, welcome to the show. Hello? Hello? Okay. All right. I guess you have a lot of people that just want to listen to what you have to say. They might be too shy to call in. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that we're going to talk a little bit about superfoods, and you mentioned lemons, and I did not know that you could actually make a lemon batter. I think that's awesome. What are some of the other foods that you would recommend, like for the gentleman that called in who's trying to maybe get his diet right? What are some good energetic foods that you would recommend people to look into?
Well, I mean, plant-based food. Obviously, I would encourage anyone to, if they can really get themselves together, to regress from eating something like meat, and that's only because first of all, the quality of the meat is very extensively toxic, and in addition to that, there is somewhat of a karmic drawback to actually eating fleshly things because it's also made of the same blood that we're made out of. So beyond that, if you can get into your grains, like I usually work with a stable, something like quinoa and something like the salads and the different mixtures of tahini. Because what happens is that the reason why we pay a special attention to creating food that tastes great is that many people think that the drawback to eating these kind of vegetarian foods, etc., is that you have to lose the appetite in a certain sense to eat good food, and that's not true. In fact, there's even a transitional method where a person can be eating certain kinds of soy, and if that's just the first thing that they decide to do before they stop eating meat, and it doesn't have much of a taste that's different than meat as a person weans themselves off of even that. So it's really one of those things that we have to look at as what exactly it's about and what we're doing, and then how that's actually affecting not only our body because the meat is actually decayed, but also how that's affecting our spirit because we're actually engaging in an act that we don't really have to. So beyond that, when you get into the fruits, the vegetables, I encourage people to do it like this. You have the fruit, you have the vegetables, then you have the fruits, and this is in order of how much kind of energy or spirit is actually inside of that element. So you have the vegetables. That's the closest to meat. Then you have fruits, which are of course grown by water and the sun, so they're higher energy. Then you start getting into the minerals, which are the mineral kingdom that exists here. Our body needs minerals, right? So that means we're eating minerals, and then it goes into the water. And obviously we see how much we need water. Obviously these are also very aggressive in demand. You can go without eating meat longer than you can go without eating vegetables. You can go without eating vegetables longer than you can go without eating, and then it keeps going down like that. For instance, you can't go a prolonged period of time without water, but you can even go least or less of a prolonged time without air. So these are the elements, if you want to understand how the organism is eating, these are the elements that the organism's eating. So we're doing that on automatic. So what this also means is that you can actually, because you already heard of the breatharian, and there's even beyond that where there's no breathing, I tell you the truth. But the reality is you see that there's a way that you can take yourself back through the elements that you've become dependent upon and then actually fully emancipate the organ. And then what that actually feels like is that you don't sleep. You don't really have that whole downtime or processing time. So just everyone see that it's anything in between what I just discussed. Meaning you can start off with a bag of Morningstar bacon strips that are made of soy, or you can go all the way into basically you're not even breathing because you have so much oxygen in your blood, you don't actually need to take a physical breath.
Oh, okay. So I hope that you guys got some information on that, and definitely check out the site because it is full of information about these topics as well. Now, on your website, you list some keywords like amplify, and there's Ethereum Sacred Powder. Can you tell me a little bit about what that does for you?
Sure. What Ethereums are natural occurring monatomics. This is areas that have been found in the desert that are generally dried up seabeds that have all those minerals in the bottom. They can get constantly cooked by the sun, and then over even thousands of years they begin to go through their mineral metamorphosis. So over that time, they also get put back into their what's called a first monatomic state. So they're very assimilable for the body, and it actually allows the person to, in a sense, harmonize themselves with that frequency, and also increase their conductivity by having that in their system.
Okay. All right. We've got a couple other callers wanting to speak with you. So let me go to area code 843. Welcome to the show. Getting glitches. Hi, welcome to the show. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Sure. What's your name, hon?
My name is Missy.
Hey, Missy. Do you have a question for my guest tonight, James Bomar?
Yeah, actually, I have a religion question. My question was, I heard that Adam and Eve were a tribe and not two people. Is that what does he feel about that?
That's very interesting you would bring that up, because I did want to close this conversation today to talk about spirits and soul groups, because I think there's this big question about why do we look different, and why is certain people born continuously in a certain reincarnation or a certain tribe, etc. And what you're really looking at is that obviously there is a first parent or a first father, mother for each dynamic of the spectrum that you have here on the planet as far as the color of the people. So what you then get from that is that every other person that's born after that, when they die, when they're still just identified also with their spirit, because remember there's now another plane that other things is going on, it's on and popping right now, that person joins back into that still individualized body. Like these soul groups are formed like bodies, and this is why you can get evil ancestors in the soul group that are making up the feet of it, powerful, knowledgeable ancestors that are making up the height of the person, or even what's called the ego. This is even above the head. You have these different dimensions in a certain sense in the soul group that allow you to transcend this idea that there is some separation. That's when you're moving towards the soul. And the interesting thing about it is that there's this myth about that the soul does not have consciousness. And what I'll tell people is, who told us that? But it may be what we would call beyond consciousness. And that's, but it's still something identifiable and something for us to actually join in on, because it is us. And this is what makes it a fact. And that's what I would encourage everyone, is to understand that you do have these individualized spirits that they're non-physical, and there's other things going on the plane that's adjacent to us all the way up. You even have bodhisattva planes. There's basically planes of spirits that are very intelligent, that have lived continuous incarnations still as individualized spirits. And so this is in order to give us encouragement, because this means that life doesn't end here. We go on. And then there's other things. And like I said, we found out a lot of information about this. Obviously, this is not exactly the panel to be talking about it, because we do have a time concern. But I would just encourage you to keep tuning into the platform and what comes out within the next few weeks about this information and the discovery of what spirits really are, what soul groups really are, etc.
Well, thank you so much, caller, for calling in. We'll let you continue to live listen, and definitely check out the site. And you're on live stream as well. So you do, is it a weekly show?
Right. We're actually in between seasons now, but there is a bi-weekly show called Astro Quest. We come on every Sunday. And we're going to be actually starting season 3, which is in February of 2014, excuse me. And then that will, of course, be when the season kicks back up. And then obviously it's a fully interactive platform where people can learn about this information and also share it with others.
Okay. I'm just going to make sure I didn't miss a call. We've got, it might be someone that's already talked with us. 518, have you already called in and spoke with our guest? Okay, let's try this one more time.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, I'm still here though.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure I didn't skip a call. Thanks for holding, and please continue to live listen. Okay, and so in closing, because we have a couple more minutes, what exactly would you like to let our listeners know that's coming up for you in the near future? I know you just mentioned something about your live stream. Is there any lectures or some other things that you'd like to share that's coming up for you?
For sure. I mean, the unity of all of the people here on this planet. Like I want to say thank you for that, and thank you for that coming up soon, because there's information, like I said, that we've really just became abreast of as a network, and it changes everything. So this is a ever moving expanse toward knowing self. That's what's involved with the Astro Quest and this Resistance 2010 platform, and even these days we're transcending that. Just wanted to say personally thanks to my wife and other individuals around me, Luis and Keyshawn, Jason, Tom, James, Jim, Trisha, Huff, all the individuals that are around, even those that I didn't mention, but are definitely close to me in spirit. And if there's anything that I can say, because we're winding down here, obviously I see that we're at the top of the hour, or nearing the top of the hour. So this is it's an amazing adventure, but what you do have to be conscious of is that there are malevolent forces. And what those malevolent forces are about is anytime you think in your mind something negative about another individual, then it already has you. It has you. And what happens then is that you go into a lower frequency. And we've learned this from others that are around us that get angry and upset and have envy and hatred. But then what happens is if we leave this planet and that's still inside of us, and we've learned to recognize that and become that, that's what we become attracted to. That's what we become. The light that we see then is actually what we harmonize with. And so what then occurs is if it doesn't happen to be that higher spectrum that we now know about, then we live another incarnation with very little power and very little ability to fully experience who we are. So I just would like to say to everyone to look and think sometimes when you need that encouragement to remember after you leave here, if you're still individualized, you go to the spirit world. And there's a lot of things going on in the spirit world. All of what you see made up here with these religions, the cults, the churches, the temples, all of the energy work, the trees, everything that you can think about, something already knows about all of this that I'm telling you tonight and has already begun to utilize it, and also utilize it in a negative way because that's why you don't know about it. And so that's the last thing that I'll say, or you're coming abreast of certain things. But remember, reading is one thing. Experiencing is something entirely different. But it doesn't always take you to go somewhere to actually experience something, because you could just go inside. And so that's what I just have to say.
Okay.
The spiral force is always present.
Thank you so much, James Bomar. My guest tonight from the website Resistance 2012, and also his other website, astroquest.com. Now, I'm going to leave you with 7 words I think that sums this up. And I hope that you check out his website and continue to listen on liveparanormal.com for the next show. And those 7 words are going to be this: amplify, replenish, energy, equilibrium, regenerate, magnify, and focus. And that's what I leave you with tonight. Thanks for listening. Good night.